Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. So, the topic of this video is reincarnation. Is there a such thing as reincarnation? And if there is, who is affected by it? So, I'm going to answer that question in this video, but I think I need to do a disclaimer. I feel like I probably should do that for these subsequent videos because if they're watching for the first time, they're probably going to wonder where I got this information from. So I actually recommend that you watch my hell video first. There are three of them, the 30 minutes each, or roughly 30 minutes. And I had a dream about hell, and I asked the Lord a ton of questions before I even had the dream, and He answered my questions in that dream. And one of the things that I asked Him is there a such thing as reincarnation? So there is a such thing as reincarnation, but it does not happen in the way that they preach the New Age teaching about reincarnation, having millions or thousands of lives. It doesn't work like that. So let me just explain the age of accountability first. There is a such thing as an age of accountability. It is the age where children get to and they are accountable for their own sins. So it's usually when a child reaches puberty. When a child reaches puberty, 12 or 13 years old, they become accountable for their own sins. They reach the age of accountability. I know a lot of people are not going to agree with that, but the truth of the matter is, just because we see them as children does not mean that the Lord does. In America, someone is not grown until they're 18 years old, but children know right from wrong well before that age. And when they reach puberty, that's when they're able to have children and reproduce. And if the Lord creates their bodies in such a way that they can reproduce and be accountable for another being, another person, then surely they can be accountable for themselves at that age. That's why it's important that you teach your children to have a relationship with Yah so that when they do reach the age of accountability, they are able to repent for their sins. So, the age of accountability is about 12 or 13 years old. It could be sooner depending on the child because everybody is different. Some children are smarter and more mature than others and may reach the age of accountability before 12 or 13 years old. But typically, it's around the time they reach puberty. Here is the thing. Whenever a child dies before they reach that age, they're not able to account for their sins or for what they have done. We are all created to praise and worship a God, preferably Yah, where we praise and worship Him, but some of us don't. Some of us praise and worship ourselves. Some of us praise and worship other people. Some of us praise and worship objects, possessions. So we don't always praise and worship the Creator, Yah. And whenever we get past the age of accountability and we don't praise and worship Yah, we are responsible for those sins, and whatever happens happens. But what happens before the age of accountability when a child dies? Well, it depends. So if the child is, I need to plug up my computer. Bear with me just a moment. If the child is a Gentile and they have not reached the age of accountability, then that means that the child is reincarnated. They are back on this earth given another chance. They have to pick a God. They have to make a decision on if they want the Lord or not. And if they get to the age of accountability and they still are uncertain, because kids they don't know consequences. The Lord looks at the heart of that child, and He looks at the heart to see if the child would pick Him. Some kids are not taught about Him, but He does look at their heart to make that determination. Now, the Hebrew Israelite children are not reincarnated. Why are they not reincarnated? They're not reincarnated. They actually go straight to heaven when they're under the age of accountability. And that's because, do you remember when Abraham made the covenant with the Lord and to be His people and to follow Him, and his descendants would be His people? Well, part of that is that the bloodline, that holy bloodline, speaks for that Hebrew child. So when that Hebrew child passes away, that bloodline is automatically, it's a holy bloodline. It automatically gives them a ticket into heaven. because they have not picked a God and they're under the age of accountability. But a Gentile child does not get that favor. They don't have that favor. So the Gentile child is reincarnated. A Gentile child can be born one race and initially, and they can die and then be reborn in another race, but it's still Gentiles. They don't go from being Gentiles to Hebrews. They go from Gentile to Gentile, and they could be in any race as a Gentile. So the age of accountability for a Hebrew child is is pretty much the same age as a Gentile child when they're able to vouch for their own sins. But if it's before the age of accountability, there is a difference in the way that a Hebrew child is treated and the way that a Gentile child is treated. The Lord does not just send the Gentile child to heaven because they have to make a decision to serve Him. Now, the Hebrew child, because of the bloodline, and that blood vouches for the Hebrew child, that Hebrew child automatically goes to heaven. And the Gentile child does not. They come back to the earth and they basically do it again, live another life. And I know that there's this new age teaching that you live millions and millions of lives, but you can't you can't live millions and millions of lives. Do you know how exhausted you would be? One life is a lot. What living one life is a lot for most people. Millions and millions of lives is just we would be born haggard. We would be born tired. And there are Gentile children that will speak about remembering a past life. They will speak about that, but they were not adults when they died. They were still children. Now, there are, we all know that there are demonic spirits that will mess with the child and tell the child they had, 50 past lives. Sometimes what we're dealing with when we hear those things is the demonic spirit that is in that child or in the bloodline of the child is the one that was with different family members through their lives, and the memory that the demon has, he gives it to the child, and the child would have otherwise no recollection of it. Where some children are able to recall dates from 2, 3, 400 years ago, and it could be that their past life was that long ago, because in the spiritual world there is no concept of time. But then other times it is that the demonic spirit is giving them memories that are not theirs, that are really not even connected to them. And these demonic spirits want you to think that you have another chance. If, one man even was talking about how he was feeling suicidal, and he heard a voice say, well, why don't you just go ahead and commit suicide? You'll get reincarnated and have another life. And that's not the case most of the time. Most people that die end up going to heaven or hell. They don't have another life. And these demons are trying to convince people that they have another chance, and they don't always have another chance, especially if they're over the age of accountability. They won't have another chance. That is their chance. So, my I guess the way I see this is, a lot of times demonic spirits are wanting people to kill themselves. If you don't like this life, just take your life, because you'll get another chance to live and be reincarnated. But that's not the case. That's not the case. The life that you have is the life that you've been given, and you have to make the best out of that life. So take those lemons and make you some lemonade. Take those grapes and make you some wine. Do the best you can with what you have, but you don't get to choose and pick the lives that you want. All right, I hope this answered any questions you may have had about reincarnation. If you like this video, please click like for me, share it, subscribe to the channel so that when I do upload future videos, you will be aware. So thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Have a blessed evening, and I will see you in the next video.